My name is Ashok Vasa. I've been trying to understand why, for the past 25 years, the software project failure rate has not changed. This matters because businesses are looking to not just deliver projects on time and on budget anymore, but they're also looking to make their investments a success and their products a success. We have been using better practices and processes to build software. We have access to more skilled people and better tools. But yet, 70% of projects are still failing. Today, we will unpack the real reasons why projects fail and give you a way out of this painful cycle. The failure rate hasn't changed since the Standish Group started the study in 1995. Of the 70% of projects that are failing, 45% are late or over budget, and 25% get cancelled. Most teams believe that projects fail because they do not follow best practices or do not have all the right skills on the team. It is true that projects that have unclear and shifting requirements, or struggle to use technology correctly, or suffer from poor team dynamics, missing critical skills, and lacking strong project management do fail. But let's see if these are truly the cause or just the effect. The software development process, best practices, and tools have been getting better. The number of skilled people in the industry has been growing exponentially. If processes, tools, and people have been getting better, but the success rate has not changed, that means these are not the real reasons. What if the true root causes are the following less explored reasons? Solving the wrong problem and not finding a good enough solution to the problem. Teams don't spend enough time defining the most important thing, the problem they're attempting to solve. Nothing is more certain to cause a project to fail than solving the wrong problem or realizing too late that the problem was misunderstood. Many teams have considerable difficulty even identifying which problems are critical. Teams speed towards building a solution. They are scared that if they spend too much time defining the problem, their customers or managers will punish them for taking too long to get started. Teams also struggle to develop good enough solutions. Many times teams go down the wrong path. They end up implementing the wrong solution and discover that they didn't solve the problem they set out to fix in the first place. They only realize in hindsight the right problem to focus on and what the right solution should have been. Most teams don't spend enough time finding and defining the right problems clearly. They need to ask the right questions earlier and not start building solutions too soon. Einstein said, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend about 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the solutions. To find the right problems, individuals and corporations must be selective in which problems they choose to take on. They should prioritize those that could have a big impact on lots of people. The solution must have a greater benefit than the cost to build and sell it. Have an acceptable payback period for the investors or the corporation. The problem is growing or getting worse. It is urgent and hard to solve, mandatory and not just a nice to have. And finally, the team must be uniquely qualified to tackle it, and most importantly, care about it and be passionate to solve it. Teams must also check if there are enough people affected by this issue and if they will benefit from this project. Most projects are only able to capture a small part of the users in the early phases, and so it's very important to ensure there are enough innovators and early adopters to sustain the project until it can penetrate to the bigger segments. Root cause analysis is an essential step. Teams should break down fuzzy, large problems into well-defined, smaller ones. Identify and visualize the multiple causes of a problem. Before agreeing to start projects or solution design, teams should try to understand why the problem hasn't yet been solved and where and which root causes are the hardest part of the problem to solve. Sometimes it's best to stop the project or do it later if it's not economical to solve it now. It's too highly connected with many other problems beyond your control. The technology is not yet mature. Once you've identified the right problem, it's time to define the problem. It's not always possible to solve all the root causes. Often the teams have to be selective on which root causes they will try to solve. The list of root causes that the team chooses to include within a project is referred to as the scope of the project. Defining the scope means to be clear on how it works today, the current state, the issues and challenges, and the ideal end state. It is very important at an early stage to understand who will say the project is a success and what criteria will be used to determine success. It is also important to find out who will say the product is a success and the criteria. If you don't do this, the teams will get stuck in endless development cycles trying to satisfy the needs of the wrong group of people. Projects also fail when teams cannot find a good enough solution. A good solution has three parts. It is a system. It does not rely on or wait for people to change. Instead, it works by changing the environment. The key idea here is that the success of the solution does not depend on people to be internally motivated to change their behavior and habits. Instead, it focuses on changing the environment around them to make good habits easy to engage in and bad habits difficult to engage in. Why should solutions not overly rely on people changing their behavior? Because changing people's behavior is hard and it takes a long time. To get people to do difficult things requires them to develop new skills. To do this, they have to go through various stages to build connections in their brain and repetition to strengthen it. Solutions that depend too much on people changing their behavior will struggle to gain adoption, as habit change is hard and happens gradually over time. A better way to develop solutions is to think about how to change the user's environment. This might be more useful in getting people to do difficult tasks regularly. To effectively design such environments, you must reduce the choices people must make repetitive tasks easy to do, reward good behavior, and make it harder to engage in poor habits. Compound the benefits. Such solutions are a type of control system. Here is a familiar example of such a control system in software. New solutions typically follow an adoption S-curve. It quickly gains the innovators and early adopters, and then must overcome a lot of resistance before it penetrates the early majority. From there, it evolves to the largest group of the late majority and late adopters and goes on to then become the dominant solution. The solution that most teams design and build do not meet the needs of the majority, and it takes more time and money than the team has to make the solution better. But most teams and solutions get stuck just before the tipping point, and most projects don't make it past this point and eventually fail. The tipping point is like boiling water. At some point, it turns from a liquid to gas. This magic tipping point is very hard to predict. Even if you ask successful projects what they did, looking back, it's hard for them to be clear when exactly it happened and what they did to tip it. The way to get unstuck is simply through trial and error and some luck, meaning random things that happen that help you along the way. Teams must get a lot better at design thinking, which is an organized way of doing trial and error on your solution. The version of your solution that you use to start this trial and error is called the minimum viable product, or MVP. You must not stop at the MVP. The MVP is simply the starting point. But if you never get your imperfect, not so great MVP into the hands of real users, you will never learn to refine the solution. Most teams never release because they think the solution is not perfect. Teams that succeed promote a culture that makes it okay to release good enough solutions. I hope this helps you look at your projects with a new perspective. You can learn more about these topics by clicking on these links below. Thank you very much. Now, I'm happy to take any questions you might have.